All right, so I am getting ready to do my sound check. So um, give me a second here and I will get it up and going. Let's see what we got here. Gotta refresh Rumble. The reason why I'm talking so much too is because I have to be able to hear my voice when I do my sound check on the live stream. So let me go in and get this going. See what it sounds like on Rumble. Okay, sounds good on Rumble. Gotta hit refresh on X. Let's see. D Live is up and going. I gotta hit play. Everything's running a little bit late. I had to run over and get some stuff real quick. Sounds good on D Live. Twitch is up. Audio sounds good on there. Kick is up and going. Everything sounds good on there. What's going on with YouTube? It's pretty rough on there because whenever I do YouTube, I have to make sure it's the right YouTube channel. And sometimes it doesn't work out that way. So let me come back into studio and see if it's at least in the studio. Yeah. Okay, so live stream conspiracy is being put on there already. So the one that I'm on isn't needed. Okay, so I'll go in there and we should be set up and ready to go. So all right, so let me do an audio check. Okay, Joe is back today. He says, "Okay, bro, how are you? Bye, bye, bro." Glad you stopped by, Joe. Okay, today is going to be conspiracy. But first, before I get everything started out, I am going to put on some music so I can go take a quick smoke break and get some coffee. So, with that being said, let me go ahead and get this going. I didn't want to take a chance of not doing an audio test because the other day I had like a 4 hour stream just go completely empty. So I did not want to jump in here and get ahead of myself and not do a good sound check, make sure it's going. So with that, I am going to put on another song from Mr. Robot. Here we go. I'll mute out and I'll be back here in a little bit. Okay, I am back. I'm going to do a last minute audio check. Make sure that everything's good. The music actually came out on there, so that was a good thing. All right, so my voice is on X, voice is on Rumble, voice is on D Live, on Twitch, Kick. Well, I can hear it. And it's on YouTube. So we are up and ready to go. So today's conversation is going to be on a conspiracy. So with that being said, I got my coffee, went out and smoked me a quick cigarette, got everything set up, and I am ready to go. So let me go ahead and actually hold on a minute. I'm going to, okay, here we go. So I am going to go ahead and do my imaginary countdown, which is to start the show, and I will do the introduction and I'll go into it. Before I get started, I want to say that the music that I used was from Mr. Robot. You can find him on minds.com, Element, and Element, as well as on Rumble. He goes by Illuminati on Rumble, and his channel is Hacker Radio. So if you guys like the music, stop by and check out his mixes, and like, subscribe, and share. Tell him how much you enjoy his music in the comment section. It's very important. So with that being said, I am going to get into this and get started. So let me go ahead and do that. I'll do my introduction. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Conspiracy here on the wonderful world of weirdness. Today, I am going to go a step farther from what I did last week when it came to the JFK assassination. I am going to start adventuring into the New World Order. Now, there's a lot of people who have different opinions of what the New World Order is, but my opinion of it is this: 1984 has already happened, ladies and gentlemen, just so you know. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through some things that actually relate to this topic, and it's information that you can find on the internet. It's not classified, it's right there in your face, and all you have to do is check it out for yourself, and you'll be able to connect the dots. So with that being said, I am going to start on my reading. Now, this might have to be more than one episode because it is pretty long. So let me just tell you now that this might not be the entire part of it. I might have to do a sequel to it. So, with that said, I am going to start. Now, members of the Warburg family were deeply involved with the reconstruction of Europe after World War II, particularly in financial and economic matters. The Warburgs were a prominent banking dynasty with ties to both European and American financial institutes, and some of their key figures played significant roles in post-war reconstruction. First, there was James Warburg, and he lived between 1896 to 1969. James Warburg was a banker, economist, and advisor to U.S. policymakers. He served as a financial advisor during the New Deal era and was involved in post-war economic planning. Warburg was a strong advocate for a world federal government and promoted economic cooperation to prevent future global conflicts like World War II. He was a key figure in discussions about the Bretton Woods system, which led to the creation of the World Bank and the International Monetary Fund, the IMF, both crucial institutions for European reconstruction. After that, we have Paul M. Warburg, who lived between 1868 to 1932, and he had pre-war influence. Paul Warburg was one of the architects of the U.S. Federal Reserve System in the early 20th century. Though he died before World War II, his influence in global banking structures played a foundational role in post-war economic policy. Now, after that, you have Max Warburg, who lived between 1867 to 1946. Max Warburg was a prominent German banker who played a role in international finances before the war, though his influence waned after Nazi Germany rose to power. The Warburg banking network continued to have an impact on post-war European finance through various institutions. Now, finally, we have Eric M. Warburg, and he lived between 1900 all the way up until 1990. Eric Warburg was directly involved in post-war European economic reconstruction. He founded E. M. Warburg and Company, which later became Warburg Pincus, a major investment firm that played a role in post-war financial recovery. He worked with U.S. and European institutions in economic rebuilding efforts, particularly in Germany. His financial expertise helped to reestablish West Germany's banking system, which was crucial for its recovery under the Marshall Plan. Now, this is where we connect from the last episode where I was talking about JFK. Now, the Marshall Plan is where um, one of the members of the Warren Commission was a part of, and that would be the connection there. So this all ties into JFK too, eventually later down the road. Okay, let me shut that door. Okay, now after World War II, Europe needed extensive financial and structural rebuilding. The Warburg family, with its deep connections in banking and international finance, contributed to several key initiatives. First was the Marshall Plan, which was between 1948 to 1952. The Marshall Plan was a U.S. initiative to aid Western Europe's recovery, and it depended heavily on financial institutes with Warburg connections. Eric Warburg and other financiers helped facilitate loans and investments to rebuild German industries. The plan revived European economies, stabilized currency systems, and ensured U.S. economic influence in Europe. Bretton Woods system is another one, and that was in 1944. The Bretton Woods Conference laid the groundwork for the World Bank and IMF, both of which played crucial roles in post-war Europe. James Warburg was involved in discussions about the economic future of Europe. The Warburg family's banking connection helped in shaping international financial agreements that stabilized European economies. Erich Warburg worked closely with U.S. policymakers to rebuild Germany's financial institutions, including Deutsche Bank and other key firms. Now, if you check out Deutsche Bank, you'll find out that they, even today, have real strong ties with the stock market. Now, Warburg led firms provided capital investment that helped restart German industries. Their involvement ensured that Germany could recover economically without falling under Soviet influence during the Cold War. The Warburgs' role in post-war Europe um, uh, was the fact that that, that members of the Warburg family, particularly Eric Warburg and James Warburg, were involved in the reconstruction of Europe after World War II. They played key roles in rebuilding Germany's financial sector, advising on international financial institutions, or advising on international financial institutions like the IMF and the World Bank. They also assisted in post-war economic stabilization programs, and they facilitated American investments in European recovery efforts. Their influence helped shape the economic structure that allowed Western Europe to recover and avoid economic collapse, particularly through the Marshall Plan and Bretton Woods system. The Warburgs undoubtedly benefited financially from their investments in post-World War II economic reconstruction, including the Marshall Plan. However, due to the complex nature of their financial empire and the private nature of many investment firms, exact profit figures are difficult to determine. Uh, with that said, we can infer their financial gains through several key areas of involvement. Uh, First, the Warburgs' financial interest in post-war reconstruction. Um, the Warburg family, particularly through Warburg Pincus and its European banking connections, profited in these ways. Um, Eric Warburg helped reestablish banking operations in West Germany, including the reorganization of Deutsche Bank and other financial institutions, like I'd said earlier. Now, Deutsche Bank um, is a very, very influential bank even to this day. If you do the research, you'll find out that they actually helped in the rebuilding of Europe after World War II, and they actually profited quite a bit from it. Um, there was so much profit being made from the rebuilding of Europe that, like I said, people don't even know for sure what the exact numbers are from it. Now, as Germany recovered, these banks became extremely profitable, handling U.S. aid money and private investment. Warburg Pincus, a firm founded by Eric Warburg in 1935, became a major player in post-war private equity and venture capital, investing in European industries and rebuilding it after the war. Now, the Warburgs provided financial consulting and advisory services to both the U.S. government and European financial institutes as well. Eric Warburg's role as an advisor to the U.S. military occupation forces in Germany would have put him in a key position to influence investment flows, likely earning fees or indirect financial benefits through business partnerships. The Warburgs helped channel U.S. Marshall Plan funds into private investments, working with major American and European firms. And I'm sure a lot of that also went into their pockets because I would almost bet that their business also included some of those European firms that money went into. So, and American as well, because they had already been established in the United States for quite some time. Now, the Warburgs controlled or affiliated institutions facilitated. No, the Warburg controlled or affiliated institutions facilitated loans, stock issuances, and business deals, offering often profiting from transaction fees or return on investment. As part of the economic rebuilding of Europe, major industrial assets were sold off or restructured. The Warburgs The Warburgs had ties to firms involved in real estate, infrastructure, and industrial development, which saw significant growth during the post-war boom. Companies tied to Warburg-led investments expanded rapidly in Germany, France, and Italy, further increasing profits. Beyond just Marshall Plan funds, the Warburgs also benefited from their deep connection to international banking and financial institutions. James Warburg had direct input into the creation of the Bretton Woods system, which stabilized global finance and created the IMF and World Bank. Warburg-associated banks handled large loans of IMF and World Bank loan distributions, profiting from transaction fees and financial agreements too. In London, the S.G. Warburg Bank, founded by Sigmund Warburg, became one of Europe's most influential investment banks, helping British and European businesses restructure and modernize. S.G. Warburg and Company became known for pioneering Eurobond markets, which allowed European firms to raise capital internationally, a highly profitable innovation. Warburg Pincus, the family's U.S.-based private equity firm, grew significantly in the decades after World War II, using its capital and connections to fund businesses benefiting from the post-war recovery. By the 1960s and 1970s, Warburg Pincus was a leading venture capital firm investing in technology, manufacturing, and financial services companies that arose during the European economic boom. How much did the Warburgs gain? While exact profit figures are unknown, we can estimate based on the Warburgs' banking activities and their post-war financial empire. S.G. Warburg and Company grew into a multi-billion-dollar investment bank before merging with UBS in the 1990s. Warburg Pincus, as of today, manages over $8 billion in assets, and much of this wealth was accumulated during the post-war period. The firm made highly profitable investments in European industries, securing returns in the hundreds of millions, if not billions, over the decades. By leveraging post-war recovery and U.S. economic dominance, Warburg Pincus became one of the largest and most influential private equity firms in the world. The Warburg family, already wealthy before World War II, saw a significant increase in their wealth after the war as their investments expanded in both Europe and the U.S. By the 1970s, various Warburg-associated financial firms controlled billions of assets across multiple industries. While the Warburgs may not have directly profited from the Marshall Plan in a conventional sense, their role in rebuilding the European financial system, advising governments, and facilitating private investments positioned them as major financial beneficiaries of post-war reconstruction. Their influence ensured that capital flowed through Warburg-associated institutions, allowing them to expand their banking empire, grow private equity investments, and strengthen international financial networks. This strategic positioning likely led to profits in the hundreds of millions, if not billions, over time. Lyndon B. Johnson's comments about the potential international tensions and the risks of war following the assassination of President JFK stem from several geopolitical and diplomatic factors that were at play during the early 1960s. The assassination of a sitting U.S. president was an extraordinary event, and Johnson, as Kennedy's vice president, found himself thrust into the presidency under a cloud of uncertainty. The comments were likely intended to reassure both domestic and international audiences about the stability of the U.S. government and to emphasize the gravity of the situation. Here are some key factors why Johnson might have spoken of such concerns. By the time of Kennedy's assassination, the Cold War between the United States and the Soviet Union was already in a very tense phase. The US and the USSR were engaged in multiple proxy conflicts across the globe, including the Cuban Missile Crisis just a year earlier in 1962, which had brought the world to the brink of nuclear war. Kennedy had been widely credited with handling the crisis in a way that avoided direct military confrontation and nuclear escalation. Kennedy's death raised the possibility of an unstable political tension, especially considering that his successor, Lyndon B. Johnson, had less experience in foreign affairs compared to Kennedy. Johnson himself was deeply concerned that the Soviets might perceive his administration as weaker or less competent, and he feared that any signs of weakness could provoke more aggressive behavior from the Soviet Union or their allies in Eastern Europe and Asia. This would have been a significant concern given the volatile state of global politics at the time. At the time of Kennedy's assassination, Cuba remained a critical issue in the U.S. foreign policy. The Cuban Missile Crisis had demonstrated the global stakes involved in any move related to the Cuban government, which was under the leadership of Fidel Castro, a communist ally of the Soviet Union. The United States had been actively involved in efforts to undermine Castro's regime, supporting anti-Castro Cuban exiles and attempting covert actions, including the failed Bay of Pigs invasion in 1961. With Kennedy's assassination, there was uncertainty regarding the U.S. stance towards Cuba and the broader Latin American region. Johnson may have feared that any misstep could lead to escalation in the Soviet Union or Cuba, particularly since there had been significant tensions over U.S. military presence in the Caribbean and nearby waters. Additionally, Kennedy had been very vocal about his commitment to the alliance of for Progress, a program aimed at improving U.S. Latin American relations. The association raised questions about the continuity of these diplomatic efforts and the potential for instability in the Western Hemisphere. By 1963, the Vietnam War was already an issue that Kennedy had been addressing, though he had not yet committed large scale U.S. military forces to the conflict. Kennedy had expressed a desire to limit American involvement in Vietnam, especially in terms of direct military combat. He had also spoken about the need for a negotiated settlement to the conflict, although his precise intentions remain a subject of debate. After Kennedy's assassination, Johnson assumed the presidency at a time when U.S. involvement in Vietnam was increasingly under scrutiny. Johnson's remarks about the risk of war likely reflected the concern that instability in Vietnam, along with fears of a Soviet or Chinese backed expansion of communism, could spiral into broader regional conflict in Southeast Asia. Johnson would ultimately escalate the U.S. military presence in Vietnam. No, Johnson, who would ultimately escalate the U.S. military presence in Vietnam, may have been indicating that the geopolitical risk of the Kennedy assassination could lead to a further escalation of the conflict. Now, personally, when it comes to Johnson, I don't feel that he was worried about the escalation or the conflict escalating. I personally feel that he wanted it to, these negotiations that Kennedy was supposedly supposed to be wanting. In my opinion, uh, they those negotiations just disappeared. It's just like what I was talking about with what Kennedy was having to do in Southeast Asia concerning the testing of nuclear weapons. Okay, he was really active in that uh, those negotiations, but after his assassination, Johnson seemed to just let it linger. It didn't become priority like it was before, and that seemed to be the common theme with all the presidents afterwards. It took until I think 20, maybe 30 decades before they actually made Southeast Asia a nuclear free zone, and that's my take on it. It's just like with Vietnam. I believe that there were groups here in the United States that wanted it to escalate more. It was, in my opinion, it seemed like it was more of a military experiment to see how well they could stand up against the communists. That's just my take on it. So, with that being said, I will shut up now and I will continue. The assassination of Kennedy not only shocked the United States, but also had a profound impact on foreign leaders and governments around the world. Allied countries feared that a change in U.S. leadership might affect the stability of alliances, particularly NATO. Meanwhile, adversaries such as the Soviet Union, Cuba, and China might have seen an opportunity to exploit the uncertainty surrounding U.S. leadership. Kennedy had cultivated a reputation for being a strong, charismatic leader on the world stage. His assassination raised concerns among foreign leaders about the future direction of U.S. foreign policy. Johnson's remark about the risk of war could have been directed at us assuaging, assuaging global concerns um, that the U.S. would not falter in the face of, or eschewing, that's it, eschewing, in the face of, no, Johnson's remark about the risk of war could have been directed at eschewing global concerns that the U.S. would not falter in the face of such a significant loss. He wanted to reassure international allies that the U.S. would remain a stable and formidable global power. Beyond the immediate international concerns, Lyndon Johnson was keenly aware of the need for political stability in the aftermath of the assassination. Johnson had a reputation for his ability to work the U.S. Congress and get legislation passed, but he was aware that his transition into the presidency was clouded by the circumstances of Kennedy's death, as well as the conspiracy theories that swirled around the assassination. Johnson's focus on international tensions and the risk of war could have been a way to solidify his role as president and demonstrate his capability to handle crises on the world stage. By focusing on the importance of maintaining U.S. leadership and standing firm in the face of global challenges, Johnson sought to reassure both the American public and the international community that the assassination would not lead to instability or chaos on the global stage. In the wake of Kennedy's assassination, Lyndon B. Johnson was not only grappling with the loss of his predecessor, but also the heightened tensions of the Cold War, growing conflict in Vietnam, and uncertain diplomatic relations with the Soviet Union, Cuba, and other international players. His comments about international tensions and the risk of war were a reflection of the precarious global situation that existed at the time and the political pressure he felt as the new leader of the free world. Johnson's concern about global instability was justified given the stakes. His presidency would eventually see the escalation of the Vietnam War and continued confrontation with the Soviet Union. But his early focus on reassuring allies and signaling strength in the wake of Kennedy's death helped to ensure that the United States would not appear weak or divided in the face of adversity. In this context, Johnson's comment about the risk of war serves both as a warning and a reassurance to both the American people and the world that the U.S. would remain steadfast in its foreign policy goals and would continue to navigate the complexities of the Cold War, despite the tragic loss of President Kennedy. Yes, John J. McCloy, who was a member of the Warren Commission, had extensive business and political ties that included connections to Nazi Germany before World War II. His involvement in Germany's industrial and financial sectors before and after the war has long been a topic of historical scrutiny. Here's a breakdown of his activities. Before World War II, McCloy was a prominent Wall Street lawyer with the firm Kraft, Swain, and more, where he specialized in international finance. His legal work brought him into contact with I.G. Farben, the massive German chemical and industrial uh, conglomerate, uh, conglomerate, conglomerate. I'm sorry. The massive German chemical and industrial conglomerate that played a significant role in the Nazi war machine. I.G. Farben was deeply intertwined with Nazi Germany's economy and was involved in the production of chemicals, synthetic rubber, and fuel that were essential to the Nazi war effort. McCloy invested no advi- McCloy advised I.G. Farben and other German businesses before the war, particularly on legal and financial matters. He helped facilitate U.S. German business dealings at a time when American investment in Germany was still legal and profitable. McCloy later became Assistant Secretary of War during World War II between 1941 and 1945, where he played a key role in U.S. military strategy and policy decisions, including the internment of Japanese Americans and the decision not to bomb Auschwitz, despite knowing about the concentration camps. After the war, he was appointed U.S. High Commissioner for Germany between 1949 and 1952, effectively making him the most powerful American official in post-war Germany during the occupation. His role included overseeing the denazification process, but controversially, he commuted the sentences of several high-profile Nazis and industrialists, including figures from I.G. Farben, who had been convicted at the Nuremberg trials. Fritz Termeer, a high-ranking I.G. Farben executive convicted of war crimes, was released early under McCloy's orders. Many former Nazis and industrialists were reintegrated into German society and politics under McCloy's leadership. In 1963, McCloy was appointed to the Warren Commission, which investigated the assassination of President JFK. His presence on the commission raised suspicions among some researchers due to his background in intelligence and finance, as well as his deep connections to powerful elites. Due to his background, critics argue that McCloy was part of a powerful network of business and intelligence figures who influenced global politics behind the scenes. His involvement in German industrial finance, his post-war clemency decisions, and his role in the Warren Commission have led some to question whether his participation in the Kennedy investigation was indeed to reinforce the lone gun narrative, rather than explore potential deeper conspiracies. Yes, McCloy had significant financial and legal ties to Nazi Germany, particularly through I.G. Farben before World War II. His influence in post-war Germany and his participation in the Warren Commission make him a controversial figure in 20th century history. Some researchers believe that his presence on the Warren Commission was part of a broader effort to maintain the official narrative about JFK's assassination, while others see him simply as a high-level establishment figure with extensive government experience. Yes, several members of the Warren Commission had backgrounds that have raised suspicions among researchers and critics of the official narrative regarding the assassination of President John F. Kennedy. Many of these individuals had deep ties to intelligence, big business, and Cold War era politics, political establishments too. But here are some key figures from the Warren Commission who, like John J. McCloy, had questionable backgrounds. First, we have Alan Dulles, former CIA director. Why his background was suspicious? Alan Dulles was the director of the CIA from 1953 to 1961, making him the most prominent intelligence official on the commission. He had a personal vendetta against JFK as Kennedy had fired him in 1961 following the disastrous Bay of Pigs invasion, a CIA operation that aimed to overthrow Fidel Castro in Cuba. The CIA had been involved in secret plots to assassinate Castro, and some researchers argue that rogue intelligence agents were also involved in Kennedy's death. Dulles had deep ties to Wall Street, elite globalist circles, and covert operations, raising concerns that his role on the Warren Commission was to protect the CIA interests rather than conduct an impartial investigation. The CIA was one of the agencies most suspected of involvement in JFK's assassination, yet its former director was placed in charge of investigating it. Dulles played a key role in shaping the Warren Commission's narrative, especially regarding the conclusion that Lee Harvey Oswald acted alone. Now we come to Gerald Ford himself, the future U.S. president. Why his background is suspicious. Gerald Ford, a congressman from Michigan at the time, would later become the 38th president of the United States after Nixon's resignation. Declassified documents later revealed that Ford secretly acted as an informant for the FBI, leaking details of the Warren Commission's inner discussions to J. Edgar Hoover's FBI. Ford pushed the official single bullet theory, which was crucial in supporting the idea that Oswald acted alone. By leaking the information to Hoover and the FBI, Ford played a role in shaping public perception of the investigation. As president, Ford appointed George H. W. Bush as CIA director, further linking him to establishment political networks suspected of involvement in covert activities. After that, we come to Earl Warren, Chief Justice of the Supreme Court. Why his background is suspicious? As Chief Justice of the United States, Earl Warren was reluctant to lead the commission, but President Lyndon B. Johnson pressured him into accepting the role. Warren was involved in the cover-up of key evidence, including restricting access to JFK's autopsy reports. He opposed investigating CIA and FBI connections to Oswald, despite evidence that Oswald had been monitored by multiple intelligence agencies before the assassination. His role as Chief Justice gave the Commission credibility despite his reluctance to fully explore alternative theories. Warren sealed key assassination records for 75 years, fueling speculation that there were more to the story than the commission admitted. After that, we come to Lee Rankin, general counsel for the Warren Commission. Why his background is suspicious? J. Lee Rankin was a Washington insider who played a major role in shaping the Warren Commission's final report. He actively suppressed witness testimony that contradicted the official story, such as evidence of additional shooters or connections to intelligence agencies. Handling of the medical and ballistic evidence was criticized for being biased towards confirming the lone gunman theory. Rankin ensured that controversial evidence such as discrepancies in the medical reports was either ignored or downplayed. He helped craft the final narrative that Oswald acted alone, despite conflicting testimonies and evidence. Now we come to Richard Russell Jr. He's a U.S. Senator. Why his background is suspicious. Senator Richard Russell Jr. was a powerful Democrat senator from Georgia with an influential member of the U.S. military and intelligence establishment. He privately doubted the single bullet theory, but was pressured into signing off on the final report. Russell had deep ties to the military-industrial complex, which stood to benefit from Kennedy's assassination if it meant escalation in Vietnam. Russell's private doubts contrast with his public endorsement of the report, suggesting he reluctantly went along with the cover-up. His connection to powerful Cold War policymakers made him unlikely to challenge the official story. While John J. McCloy's pre-war financial dealings with Nazi Germany and I.G. Farman were deeply controversial, he was not the only member of the Warren Commission with a questionable background. Several other members had strong ties to the CIA, FBI, military-industrial complex, and intelligence networks, leading critics to argue that the commission was designed to reinforce the lone gunman theory rather than seek the full truth. Now, here are the key takeaways. One, you had Alan Dulles, former CIA director, fired by JFK and helped shape the Warren report despite the CIA being a potential suspect. Then you have Gerald Ford, he secretly leaked information to the FBI, pushed the single bullet theory, and later became U.S. president. After that, you have Earl Warren. He restricted evidence, sealed records, and prevented deeper investigations into intelligence agencies. Then you have J. Lee Rankin. He controlled legal proceedings and suppressed conflicting witness testimonies. Then finally, you have Richard Russell Jr. He privately doubted the report, but was pressured into signing it. Now, given the background of these key members, many researchers argue that the Warren Commission had never meant to uncover the full truth, but rather to provide an official narrative that protected powerful institutions. So that is what I have right there when it comes to the New World Order and how things work. Okay, McCloy plays a really, really big part in this, and the Warburg family also plays a big part of this. I'm going to come back later on too and go farther in with the Warburgs and discuss some of their dealings. Um, I wanted to introduce this from the time of the rebuilding of Europe because this is very, very crucial when it comes to what I've been learning. Um, some would say that World War II was not a mistake. It was actually manufactured and it was encouraged by a lot of these powerful, uh, rich men. And from a lot of the stuff that I have learned, I can agree that that would be the case. Um, I know that for me, whenever I learned about people like Max Warburg and Paul Warburg, it really amazed me. Now, when I go further, I will be talking more about them. The reason why I wanted to bring Eric Warburg up is because Eric Warburg was very, very important when it came to the rebuilding of Europe in World War II. Um, it's him and James Warburg that actually played important roles in that. So while they were over in Europe rebuilding Europe and getting extremely rich, Paul Warburg and Max Warburg were also over here in the United States getting rich as well. Um, there's also a past there because Max Warburg, I believe, is the one who I'm not sure. I'll come back with this, but I believe not only did he come to the United States, but he was also a war. He should have been a World War I war criminal. He was a financial advisor to the king, I guess you'd say, of Germany. I don't know what the term would have been for him during that time, but he advised him on economic spending and everything during the war, and he was very important to the Germans when it came to fighting against the Allies. Now, this is the war where a lot of people died because of chemical warfare and stuff of that nature. Now, he was directly involved with the enemy during World War One, and then after World War One and World War Two started, that's when things got a little hairy for him because the regime ended up being the Nazis, who were uh, really, really anti-Jewish. So things started happening to where he had to leave the country, and he just came right on over to New York City, and we welcomed him in with open arms, even though by all accounts he should have been a war criminal after World War One. This is the kind of stuff that I'll be getting into later on when I come back to this, but I did want to start it out here. um, I had just done JFK too, so I wanted to point out a lot of these people that were involved on the Warren Commission, so that we understand the people who were on this commission were not legitimate people. They had very, very shady backgrounds and reputations. People didn't just all of a sudden start saying, I don't think it's real. I think they're lying. There was reasons for it, and the or one of the biggest facts for why people felt that it was a cover up was because of the people that were placed on the Warren Commission at the time. And these people knew who they were. Um, this goes all the way back to World War II, where John J. McCloy himself was putting Japanese citizens here in the United States into internment camps, um, and he was also releasing war criminals in World War II that were part of uh, Farben, IG Farben, um, and the Krupp family too. KRUPT, the Krupp family. That's another one. So, like I said, I will be coming back, and I will have more on this subject later on. I want to go through, see if I have anybody in the chat sections before I end the show. It doesn't look like there's anybody there, which is good. So I can just get the heck out of here. Let me double check and make sure my audio is actually working before I do that. It sounds good on Rumble. Okay, sounds good on D Live. I'll just take that as yes, it sounds good. So, like I said, the music that was provided at the beginning of the stream was brought to you by Mr. Robot. You can find him on minds.com or on the Element chat. He's also on Rumble. He goes by Columinati, and his channel is called Hackers or Hack. What is it? Hacker Radio. Hacker Radio. That's it. So if you guys like the music at the beginning, go check him out. Say hi to him. Let him know that you enjoy his music. Say something in the comment section because it gets tiresome when all you hear or all you get is comments from somebody that's wanting to help you grow your channel. Just pay for this many subscribers and we can hook you up. That kind of sucks. So if you guys do enjoy his music, stop by and give him some support. That's all I'm asking. Um, I am streaming on Rumble, X, D Live, Twitch, Kick, and YouTube right now. Sometimes I do stream on Odyssey, but not this time of the year. I have different things going on, so that's not happening. I have the Wonderful World of Weirdness on YouTube as well as Rumble. Um, all of the streams that are on these two channels are in playlists. You can catch the live streams in the live stream playlist of the Wonderful World of Weirdness. I'm also coming out with 15-minute videos of conspiracy and all the other ones too that are coming out every once a week. So you can check it out again that way, or you can go to my other channel, which is Strange Stories, and that's my actual channel that I started back in the day before I came in and started doing the Wonderful World of Weirdness. And you can see the raw uh, videos that I have on there from these shows. So you'll get it plenty of chance to see it again. Is all I'm saying. So if you guys enjoyed the show, give me a like, subscribe, share. Make some comments in the comment sections for me too. I enjoy that stuff a lot. I really do. And I don't know. I think I've run out in things to say, to be honest with you. Now, later on, like I said, I can come back to this because this is something that I do want to go further in. I also want to discuss Operation Gladio. I think that's important. Get into some of that and make a topic out of that, so that because I noticed there's information on the internet that's just kind of disappearing, fading away. I don't know if people are not talking about it or if it's just being erased, but I figured It's time for me to get in here and start putting some of this up because it's good that we keep this stuff going and let people know the stories behind a lot of this stuff. So, with that being said, I think I'm actually done. I have been trying my best to make it to the hour and 15 minute point so that I can make it an official 1 hour stream. Because I'm pretty sure it took me 15 minutes, maybe 16 minutes to get everything up and going and do the sound checks and stuff. So I'm just here to waste a little bit of time. I hope you guys enjoyed, and I hope you had a good night. I will talk to you later.